comic, I'm starting fires through poetry. The heart's out, staying loyal, no falling out. And if you step into the court, be ready, we ballin' out, yeah. I just gotta go hard. Go hard, go hard, yeah. Go hard.
And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Next.io weekly news. And this week we have a very special edition coming up for you. First of all, we should say thank you to Playson for that fabulous intro music that we love every week, that always gets us in the mood. And thanks also to YOLO Group, who are also sponsoring this episode. Thanks to both of you, because you keep us coming back every single week. You will see, of course, that I'm joined, as always, by my partner in crime, Mr. Nico Jansen. Nico, how are you today?
I'm doing just great. I'm so thrilled for today's episode, and and we first of all shout out to each and everybody signing on and joining us on this quite unique episode. And we have to change a little bit as we are joined by designated experts. They know each and everything inside out. So today there will be no 10 and 5, as we just want to give each and everybody the space that they deserve, and we will just focus on what these experts have to say.
Absolutely right, Nico. I couldn't agree more. I think we should get straight down to it. Sasha Borma says in the comments, I'm excited for this one. Well, let me tell you, so are we. The title is at the top there. Is German iGaming destined to fail amid black market growth? And we have got a mega panel of some world-leading experts in exactly that topic. So I think if we can start bringing them into the stream, we can get straight down to it. Joining us today are Dr. Joerg Hofmann, who is a senior partner at Melchers Law Firm. We also have Mathias Dahms, president of the German Sports Betting Association, DSWV. Next up, we have Dirk Quermann, president of the German Online Casino Association. We're also joined, yes, there's more, Shahar Attias from the Hybrid Interaction. He is the chief executive officer there. And last but certainly not least, we have Roger Redfearn-Tyrzyk from IDnow, where he is the VP of Global Gaming. Gentlemen, what an esteemed panel. Thank you very much for joining us all today. How are you all? Thumbs up? Excellent. That's what we like to see.
Yes.
There's so many.
Good to be
Good.
here.
I'm glad to hear it. There's so many of us today, so we should get straight down to it. So, Nico, I know you.
But only guys. No
Well, I know. Isn't that a shame? But let's not focus too much on that. Let's think about Germany and all the different things we can say about that market. So, Nico,
I'll be meeting one later.
Yeah, okay. Nico, I know that this is a market that's close to your heart and close to your home, indeed, and it's something you've been thinking about a lot this week. Do you want to kick us off and tell us what got you thinking about the black market in Germany this week?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm just doing the intro to these experts. So as already stated, these are the cool kids. So we are joined by the representatives of at least 95% of the licensed market in Germany. So it's not like a couple of nicely looking men joining us. You literally represent the German licensed markets. And I couldn't be more proud that each and every one of you just confirmed having an interest in this panel. And shout out to all of you for being here. And I'm thrilled about this episode. So we had a Gaming in Germany event where also one of the co-CEOs, Mr. Schwanke, actually joined us, and he had a claim like there's no evidence for declining revenues for licensed operators. And they had some rumors going around that this might not just be totally correct. So we have some underlying numbers, and usually taxes don't lie in Germany, which kind of state otherwise. But Joerg, why don't you just kick us off with the regulatory landscape in Germany and introduce us briefly on what's going on in Germany?
Happy to do it in a nutshell, and thanks for your excellent introduction, Nico. Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to represent 95% of the licensed market, of course, but we come from a black market. Every regulation, and Germany is one of these former .com jurisdictions, comes from a black market. The question is, are we going back to a black market, or are players going back to a black market? And in a certain way, it looks like this is the case. I can understand GDL evaluating and assessing numbers and figures. And as you said, if there is no evidence, that could probably mean no evidence has been found. But there might be some evidence. It's a question of sources and channels. And so far, the conference you were mentioning a week ago also provided some very interesting intelligence provided by Ed Berklin, who is with H2 Gambling Capital. And I know him since 2010 as someone who is really, really on a very reliable matter, screening the markets, not only Germany, it's international. And he's got a completely different assessment of what's going on. But before I share some of these insights, I will answer your question and do you the favor, of course, to say, where are we and how was the way to where we are now? I said it was the black market. And this means until 1st of January 2020, there was no licensing regime, at least not a functioning licensing regime. Attempts maybe, but first licenses were able to be applied for in 2020 and for sports betting only. And the first one were issued in October 20. In these days, the regional council in Darmstadt was the responsible regulator. Then the next historical step was the 1st of July in 2021, when the current interstate treaty came into force and established a licensing regime for virtual slots and online poker. Also for online casino games, which some kind of confusing typically will be associated to online casinos, what we understand to be slots, but here it's just table games, bank holder games, and not subject to the private market federal licenses, but licenses you can apply for with these 16 German lenders, and only 2 decided so far to consider private operators get these licenses. It's roulette, baccarat, blackjack, these things. And of course, in between, we have this transitional regime where the black market operators since then had a chance to amend the offerings, to adjust it to the requirements of the future interstate treaty. And so they changed it. And they followed these requirements. They adopted a 5-second spin duration as average. They adopted the €1 stake for stake limit and many other things. And so we saw in these days, even before licenses were granted, they lost a lot of traffic, they lost a lot of turnover and revenues. And those who did not comply, they really benefited from this sort of restriction and skyrocketed with their turnover, even before licensing regime were in place. This happened between 2021 and now, and it's still ongoing. First licenses were issued then, I would say, if I remember right, maybe end of 21, beginning 22, for these virtual slots. Virtual slots, it's only table games. And at the moment, if you look at the whitelist, which is published with the regulators, we have 31 sports betting licenses, 40 virtual slots, 5 online poker, and 0 online casino. Means if you want to play poker, you can only do it in black market environments. That's where we are at the moment in terms of the licensing regime. One of the issues, and we will discuss this, is our system is pretty much restricted because it's a compromise of 16 lenders, 16 prime ministers signed something which should be valid across the German state and could even allow the most conservative and reluctant state to say, I sign it because I can see this is what I can accept. I'm not liberal, possibly. These are these limits I mentioned. Today we have deposit limits. 1,000 euro, it's a standard per player per month, can be extended up to 30,000, but that's it. So what about high rollers who spend more money and deposit more money? They're gone, of course. We have these product limitations. We have a very reduced catalog of bet types, betting markets, and betting events. We have reduced live betting. All those things which players are demanding are pretty much restricted. We're talking with the GGL to make things better. This is an ongoing process, and probably we will be successful one day. Same applies to advertising restrictions. No influencers, no bonuses, or the only bonus allowed for players is 100 euro per player per year, even as a welcome bonus. And if you want to offer a bonus, it's 10% of the stake, which is allowed to do so. Is not competitive, subject to litigation, but these are many, many reasons why we can refer to ad, and I'm closing with that, ad working, saying top 1% of the players stand for 25% of the revenue, of the gross gaming revenue, top 5 for 65%. And that is a key figure. We can say, even if it's more or less in Germany, we can see where these players were gone to. They're outside in the black market. But we can come back to this. I have to stop. There's more panelists in this webinar.
So to wrap things up a little bit, Jörg, we are talking about one of the tightest regulations out there in the market, with the €1 maximum stake, with the 1,000 deposit requirement, which is set as soon as a player signs on to a regulated operator. And then we have a cross-operator database, because this 1,000 euros is shared with every operator. So one player can top up, deposit 1,000 euros per month across all operators. So as said, it's one of the most tightest regulations we have here globally.
Yeah,
so
you won't find anything comparable in other jurisdictions. Parts of it, of course, and there's maybe a more restrictive regulation on advertising in some countries, total bans and things like this. But in terms of those restrictions and product restrictions, I think we are on the top of those who restrict the most.
Okay, so heading over to you, Roger, as you're representing one of the service provider who actually deal with verification and authentication of players. What are these restrictions in Germany compared to other jurisdictions, and how do you actually, from IDnow, cope with that one?
I think, first of all, from a, if we just speak from a, let's say, verification side of things purely, I think again it differs a little bit to obviously other countries where you really kind of check in if the person is saying who they are, which in my opinion isn't such a bad idea. I think it's almost good that you are kind of enforcing a biometric check, such as an example required also in Netherlands and Canada as well. So it's enough to take from that perspective. It is, I would say, okay, but there is also certain interpretations, and as we would say in Germany, da scheiden sich die Geister, is as to what does really mean having a fully verified player? What does it really mean to have, let's say, a partially verified player? Is a, let's say, check against the database enough in order for the player to spend so and so much money? Is it enough if I, an example, get a utility bill, if I get a passport or driving license, so on and so on? So it is a little bit, obviously, on this side, I would say probably less problematic than on a lot of other parts of the regulation. But what we can see when the German, let's say, really kicked off the first time, when the kind of transitional regime started, we started seeing obviously really high numbers of verifications. Of course, there was re-verifications of databases, etc., which you have to do. And we saw, but then after that, we saw a very steady stream of, let's say, verifications. I mean, obviously not going to disclaim the exact number, but let's say especially in the last 6 months, we can see a decrease in the numbers of players being verified. And what we can see is increase of players being verified for overseas operators. That includes, of course, operators that have licenses in an example, different countries such as Malta, Gibraltar, Isle of Man, Curacao, etc. So, we can see. I mean, of course, we don't know if the verification has taken place in that country because we cannot see this in our data. But what I can tell you is that for the licensed operators in Germany, there has been a decline in the past 6 months. That we can see.
Oh, that's quite interesting. So, Joerg started us off with a tight regulation. Now we have the verification, authentication of players. Of course, we have a so-called provisional gaming, which allows a player to deposit up to 100 euros within a time span of 72 hours. So the player can play on German license operators. But as you stated, and this is what you see within the numbers, we see a decline in player verification. And now heading over to Matthias, who's representing all or nearly all the licensed sports betting operators. And I'm pretty sure you have some data for us as well. So Matthias, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here, and great pleasure to be for the first time with Next.io. And with you guys. Unfortunately, no girls today. But let's see how's the German market feeling at the moment. I think we were all in favor of a new regulatory regime in 21 when it came into force on the 1st of July. And everybody was really looking forward how this market will develop. And it was a clear sign from the politicians who developed this new state treaty in Germany that this should be the start for a fully regulated market with a high level of market share being within the regulated market. And now, 2 years later, if we look at the scene and at the situation, we must acknowledge that this is not really the case. And we had already some problems with some of the regulations within the state treaty, but in general we confirmed it and we approved it, and we said this could be the basis for the future. And one of the most important things we always demanded in the years before was central authority. During the past days in the unregulated market, we had distributed responsibilities across several of the states. Always the states in Germany are responsible for gaming regulation and enforcement and so on. And now we have a central authority, which is the so-called GGL. In Halle, and they have now the task to regulate the market and to bring it where the politicians wanted it to be. And at the moment, we see that definitely the market is perhaps not really declining, but in not a very good shape. In the past, we always had increasing numbers which we derive from the paid taxes in Germany, and during the past 10 years we had a constant growth rate of approximately 10 to 20% per year concerning the paid taxes from sports betting operators. Since 2012, we already have this sports betting tax, and every regulated and every unregulated operator who is active in the German market is obliged to pay this tax. So the taxes are a clear indication for that. And I think you already have prepared a slide to give some more indications about the situation of the market. Can you show it to the audience? Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Okay, there we have the taxes on one hand, but also, and come to that later. But we also have different other indicators, which are, for example, the advertising spendings. These are measured by Nielsen Group, quite famous to do this, and they do it for quite a long time. And there we see that we have nearly halved the advertising spendings by gaming operators in Germany during the past 3 to 4 years. And we expect that within 2023, there will be no increase, and there will be probably a further decrease. And additionally, we also have a significant decrease in the level of sponsoring for sports bet, for football clubs, for example, but also for other professional sports. In Germany, we are, due to advertising restrictions, not allowed to sponsor amateurs or underage sports activities and so on. And so we are fully concentrating on professional sports, and it's mainly going to football. And additionally, we have a certain decrease in the spendings during the past years. And if we look at the next slide for the development of the taxes, which is to my opinion the most powerful indication how the market really looks like at the moment. And the red line are the sports betting taxes during the past few months, since January 21. And the blue one is for virtual slots. On this topic, Dirk Quermann will surely give you some more impressions about the market fields. And we see that since the beginning of the regulation, we have definitely a decrease in the taxes, which means the regulated market shrinks. And as we all know, our customers, we are quite confident that those customers do not stop betting and do not stop gambling, but in fact, they are moving to other operators which are not regulated in Germany within the black market. And this is a significant problem. In the past, we thought that the regulated operators would get some additional advantages compared to the black market, which would be, for example, to be able to advertise in TV and internet and so on. But we see that we have, on one hand, of course, no black market operators advertising on TV in Germany, because the TV stations wouldn't do this. But on the other hand, that for example, on the internet via Google ads and so on, there's still a huge presence of black market operators, and this is a significant problem for the German market. And one of the major problems we have here is that after the recovery from Corona, the regulation has also tightened the screws on the regulated operators. And we have, on one hand, restrictions within the games themselves. That means the betting program, for example, in the sports betting area is very much restricted to certain leagues and events, and also certain bet types. We don't have the full-blown betting program we know from internationally acting operators. And then we have quite high taxes. I think the highest taxes all over Europe, or possibly all over the world. And so, in fact, really, the German market is a stricted, regulated market in the world, as Joerg Hofmann already reported. And this means that it's quite hard to bear all this here in Germany. But we are, as an association, and this may be some advertising block now, we are in quite constant contact with a regulator, with a DGL, with those guys who handle the laws and interpret the laws for the German market. And so we're quite looking forward to get the things really better and better. And so, the first thing is that we have to make clear to the regulator that the current situation is not really acceptable, and that we have a significant problem here, and that we have to solve this problem together with the regulator. To see what we can do within the state treaty, not to change the state treaty now already, but within the state treaty, there are a lot of possibilities where the regulator can loosen the tightened screws and give the operators a little bit more flexibility.
Thank you. Go ahead, Nick.
One additional comment, because there are also a lot of people who actually just listened to the podcast and they couldn't see the great graphics you just put on, Matthias. So what has been visible on the graphics is like, on a monthly basis, we've seen, if I'm not mistaken, from July 2021, the sports betting tax, which is a tax on stake of nearly 5.03%, which decreased from 40 million euros per month to 1 year later, roughly 20 million euros on the taxes on stakes, while the taxes on the slots started with 50 million euros on a monthly basis, and they decreased to 10 million euros just 1 year later. So there you just see a significant decrease of the taxes being collected.
Yeah, that's true. And in fact, when we see the total taxes within the year, we have a lot of changes during the year, and we try to normalize this. And if we look at the reduction during the past years, we had in the year 22 reduction within the taxes paid for sports betting of 13%, and this year already we have a further decrease of 15%. So it really goes down, and the trend is not really making us very optimistic about the future. But we have to solve this problem. This is our task. This is a duty we have as an association, where we represent the full industry here in Germany. And yeah, I'm very happy that we are strongly supported by our members here.
Yeah, thanks for that, Matthias. Very interesting perspective, especially on the sports betting side of the market. Now, Dirk, of course, you are president of the German Online Casino Association. So how does everything that Matthias was talking about for sports betting, how does that match up to how your association and members feel from an online casino perspective? Is it a very similar story for you?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation as well. It's the first time for me as well. And in another role as a managing director of the holding company of the Deutsche Gesellschaft für Glücksspiel, I was even the one to receive the very first slots license. And I would really be happy to represent 95% market share just with this company. But to be honest, it's not the case. And even 95% market share in former times is, as we have seen, the numbers is not too big at all. But coming back to the role as the president of the association, I think there's one slide left, which you can now show us immediately. And the only information on this slide for the podcasters is that half of the time spent by German gamblers is currently spent on illegal online gambling offerings. So means half of it legal side, half of it on the illegal side, time-wise. But this is only measured time-wise. And the result comes out of a recent study. We and the German Sports Betting Association, as ordered by the University of Leipzig, led by Professor Guter Schnabel, which is quite an expert in this field as well. And all these information are based on a representative panel provided by Nielsen as well. They measure the digital market in Germany, have a quite large panel. And we used this panel and counted all the time spent on gambling sites. And the result is half of the time is spent on illegal, half of the time is spent on legal sites. Which brings us to the conclusion, because I think we are all aware that the illegal market with their offerings is much better, and that you can spend much more money in the same time as in the legal market. So we come to the conclusion that at least 75% of all the revenues done in online gambling in Germany at the moment are spent on the illegal side, and this is our result. So we have a proof of these 50-50 time spent, and as market experts and all our members say, 75% in revenues are spent on the illegal side. And all these numbers, I think Jörg, you mentioned it as well, are supported by some other studies like H2 Gambling Capital, and we discussed it last week on the Gaming in Germany conference as well. They have quite the same numbers. They are a little bit, they do not push it like this, but they have the same result. And to be honest, the result means that the regulation at the moment, at least, or for online gambling in total, which means, of course, for online slots and online poker, does not work at all. And that we are really in the wrong direction. And the result, I think Mathias Dahms already mentioned it, or one of the reasons for this result is that we, first of all, start with a very restrictive online gambling treaty. But even this restrictive online gambling treaty is now filled by the GGL with even more restrictive rules based on this gambling treaty. And all the interpretations done by the GGL are in the restrictive way. And all the powers they already have to even make the market more attractive are not used. They are even not used, and they are used in the wrong direction. So, for example, that's what have been discussed before, the max bet per spin of €1. So the GGL is able to lift this €1 limit on the slots, on the stakes, but they are not doing it. And they are even bringing more restriction than to lift restrictions. But they are able to do it. Mathias Dahms said that there are even some possibilities within the gambling treaty, without changing it, that the market can be more attractive. Because what we have at the moment is that the legal market is not a real possibilities, or not a real. It's just not in the decision making of the players whether to use a legal side or an illegal side, because the illegal side is much more attractive, and they are not in line. This means that 75% of the revenues are spent or the players are not in a protective marketplace. So there are some dangers for them, some additional dangers, and of course several hundred millions in tax revenues by the German authorities are not done, which is a big fault as well. So what needs to be changed? I think, first of all, what we all know, or at least all the operators within the market know, that there need to be a speed up in all the processes of the GGL. So what they are doing in some areas is really not the more or the wisest solution. For example, to do these checks to check all the games in the way they are doing it at the moment. It's not really wise to do it like this, and they will never be in line with the market needs if they continue with this. And of course, I think what we need as well is that the GGL really needs to change its minds. So they have to support the legal market, and they have to use all their power to support the legal market. and not to bring more restrictions on the legal market, and just to try to get some enforcement to the others, to the illegal market, because this will not work out and will not. It will not be able to change the 50-50 market spend of the 75 or time spent and the 75% money spent in the right direction. And this needs to be changed. And of course, I think last action needs to be that there needs to even be to be considered that some regulations within the gambling treaty needs to be changed. Because the gambling treaty was a result of a political discussion for about 2 years. And there have been very, very different positions from the single Bundesländer. And some didn't want to change the old gambling treaty where they at all. Some others want to have a more free market. And one result, for example, was that the casino games, the real casino games, were not in a normal licensing process, but are restricted to the single Bundesländer, and every single Bundesland can decide whether to grant licenses or not. And this is not the right way to regulate the business, which even means that we have at the moment 100% illegal market within these games, within roulette, blackjack, and all the typical casino games. And these needs to be changed as well. Of course, we now have to live within this system. So this means that in some Bundesländer we will have licenses, but these Bundesländer now have to grant the licenses. And in general, we have to change this system to a nationwide system as well.
Very good, Dirk. Really interesting to get that perspective on, how this affects the market as a whole. And of course, crucially, what the impact of that very restrictive regulation is for the customer. And that helps us to explain where some of that data is coming from about the black market. But I'd like to shift gears a little bit and maybe think a bit more about these questions from an operational perspective and what that means for, the companies in the sector. What kind of unique challenges are presented by these very tight regulations? Shahar, do you have anything to contribute on that point?
Yeah, but I will try to say it without using any bad language. At large, I really don't understand the nature of the discussion, because I've never seen a regulator that is reducing the level of restrictions, okay? Lifting restrictions. I mean, it could be a good bad night story, but I think most regulations just go more restrictive than trying to be more reasonable. What we see from our perspective as a consulting agency, and we're working with numerous companies in the market, we see NGR that is dropping by several folds over the course of a year, from average of, I would say, 110, 120 euros monthly per sports betting player. Now it's 90. Okay, that's a huge drop. You have to understand that the regulation has created a vacuum, and vacuum has to be filled. And why on earth a player with two options will decide to go with the one that is, more nasty, rather than making sweet love with him? Okay, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, so you have on one side a brand that gives you all variety, all games, with bonuses, with no restrictions. To be fair, by the way, most of them do apply some level of restrictions on themselves. They're saying, we don't want our players to lose their houses. We don't want our players to play with funds that they don't have. But 1,000 euros a month, across all brands, again, it just doesn't make sense. We know of enough regulators that have done a way better job. Denmark, Netherlands, maybe US, of course, but over there it's, you know, some would say it's more to the extreme. But so if that would be like the most liberal version, and Germany would be the most German version, then there got to be something in between. I mean, currently just it's not sustainable as it is. We know that operators are looking at the conditions and are saying, yes, in theory, it makes sense if I could have advertised and if I know that I have a strong back from the regulator that will protect me from black market operators. Since what you're getting is just the least chance of paying more taxation, the decision is quite clear from a business point of view. And you know, so players make their own decisions based on logic and what's better for them. Operators are making their decisions based on what's better for their business. And you end up with a discussion like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think there are any surprises there. Well done for not using any foul language during your answer. You did very well.
The hour is not over yet.
I wanted to point out a comment we had on LinkedIn here from Robert Lenshofer, who many of you may know. And Robert asked us, isn't the real concrete issue and one where the GGL could be convinced to change their mind and what they have in their power is to pull forward the evaluation report, which is currently only due by 2026. And as an extra note, they're publicly giving that timeline to black market operators is a bit, say, careless. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? What's this report that's coming by 2026? And why isn't it coming sooner?
Yes. I think I'm no lawyer, but Joerg may more clearly explain this, but that's definitely written in the law. The state treaty contains this obligation for the evaluation process, and the final evaluation document will be finished until the end of 26. But a preliminary one will be already delivered at the end of this year. And I know that the German states are preparing this together with the GGL. They're putting a lot of effort at the moment there. Therefore, it's sometimes not quite easy to get them on the phone or for a video conference. And but in fact, this first evaluation report, this preliminary one this year, will more or less be descriptive. That means it will explain the current situation and what the GGL did up to now and how things are really developing, and will not really contain recommendations for the change of the law. This will probably be the case in the future.
Yeah, Matthias, maybe to add, I think this argument of waiting for for these reports, from my point of view, it's more or less an excuse, which is used quite often, because if you see that the market or the market model is not working, you have to change it immediately, and you do not have to wait for some reports which are defined in the law. And just wait for it. So there is no restrictions. Jörg, correct me if I'm wrong. If you see wrong developments, you can change it even before. So what I think from my point of view, what we have to do is that we have to convince the stakeholders that they do not wait for this report, because they will only do it in 2026, but that they will change something. And the first change needs to be within the GGL, within their strategy, not to weaken the illegal market, but to strengthen it. Which means that we have to have some more attractiveness in the illegal market.
I can concur with you, Dirk. I think we don't need a formal assessment which ends at the end of 26. That's way too late. Even 23 is not early enough, because we see tendencies, we see where the market is going. What we need to provide is education. It's not lobbying, it's really about education. If regulators think there is a wonderful channeling rate and we see this is wrong, then we have to provide as evidence as an industry, which is convincing. I do not expect anything appropriate with these assessment in 26, because those people who are looking at the market, I don't think they really take everything into consideration the way it should be. That may be reflecting Shahar's experience in All Things Get Worse. But in one point, I would not concur with Shahar. I think we will see in Germany that fighting the black market by way of enforcement doesn't really work. We can apply IP blocking, payment blocking, IP blocking if it's allowed to do so, but we will not kill the market. More than 800 online gaming operators are out there, and they are laughing about what we are doing. We are supporting the black market in restricting the license market. So if you look back in the early days of Italy, when they had a very pretty much restricting regime as well, and they learned the channelization rate is so poor, a few years later, they changed it by lifting restrictions, by amending the scope of licensed and permissible offers. And almost overnight, there was an increase of players coming back to the market. No new players. The old ones returned home. I think this is what we can expect. But we have to make sure everybody, and it's not GGL alone, it's the politicians, lawmakers behind it. Everybody has to understand, if we want to fight the black market, we have to make the licensed market competitive. Final thing is, it's not about regulating the industry, regulating the market, it's about regulating the player. The player has to be in the focus. If he makes that decision, one set, two options, and goes to the option which is far away, then we could have the best legal and maybe psychological system to protect addictive players, but we can't, because there's no one we can predict. They're all playing outside of this environment. That's why I say what we do is simply crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to, sorry, go on, Shah.
It's going to take 20 seconds. First of all, I wasn't aware of Italy removing restrictions. That's very optimistic. But let's go back to the US example. Nobody in his right mind is operating black in the US, right? I mean, unless you are really anxious to get 250 years in jail. So you could build a strong enough ecosystem that would support and allow the legal brand to roam freely. But yes, that's my opinion. Please go ahead, Roger. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, but Shana, I think this German situation is really different, because perhaps everybody would like to travel to the US and doesn't want to get into jail there, but not everybody is willing to travel to Germany. Perhaps expect the Munich.
But your Caribbean beaches.
And the enforcement opportunities are different between those two jurisdictions.
Yeah.
Sorry, Roger.
Okay, I think it's really difficult to compare these two situations.
I think also if you look at the player kind of the player side, right? And I just wanted to use the same example as Jörg has with Italy. I think as a player, when you kind of, let's say, maybe start gambling, I mean, it was certainly the let's say the case for me. You associate yourself with a brand, so like that's kind of like your favorite brand, to go to, or if you have a favorite casino, that's where you want to go, right? So like you don't maybe like other places. So and we saw exactly that in Italy, where obviously, let's say, players chose to go somewhere because they thought it's not a great experience, and that kind of is not what they want. So and we're seeing the shadows, or well, not shadows but replication of this in Germany at the moment, where players just choose to go to different online casino, online roulette, online blackjack, whatever it is, also sports betting in certain cases, in order to do, let's say, proper live betting, as you would say in the UK. But then again, it's from my perspective as well. Obviously, when I grew up in Germany, and obviously then got to a certain legal age, started doing things here and there, and it was a good experience. But now when I went back recently to visit my family, I went onto the same, let's say, bookie, to do, let's say, a little bet on the weekend. It was terrible. It's like, I didn't like it. You're very restricted in terms of like what you can do, what the choices are given. And let's say, of course, we all want change, but I mean, I think, everyone here who has lived in Germany or is living in Germany now, to expect, let's say, a Deutsche Behörde to do something, quickly, you probably have a better chance of your wife agreeing with everything you say, really, on a day-to-day basis. So it's unfortunately, it is a very cumbersome, obviously, undertaking. And I just wish, because in the end of the day, the regulations are there to protect players. And I think at this moment in time, they're not protecting the players. They're actually, let's say, trying to hush them to different sites where they get the experience that they really want. And unfortunately, nothing is protected. Your money's not protected, your identity is not protected, etc. So it's very tough, and I wish there was a quick solution. But unfortunately, I guess it's gonna take each and every one of us to bring the solutions to the regulator, and hoping that they do something about it, because there is obviously data, as we just saw with obviously Matthias. And also, obviously, from our side, there is data that suggests exactly what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are coming towards the end of our hour, but we've got one more quick topic to discuss. I think we should all have a think about the future outlook for the German market. We'll go back to our original question: is the German market destined to fail amid the black market growth, or can we turn this around? One of the things we like to do here on Weekly News when we have guests is ask them to predict the future. So if you think about 1 year, 3 years, 5 years ahead, maybe we can have one prediction each from all of our guest speakers today. Tell us what you think is going to happen. Shahar, shall we start with you?
Sure. I foresee no change.
No change. So, do you think the revenues will continue to decline and it will just shrink away to nothing?
Probably at some point, maybe not in the next year or so. The market is going to stabilize with more prominent players, and it's going to be sort of like a 3-4 major operators that know how to work within the regulated market, because they will have less competition. And roughly, it's going to look like that.
Okay, so your glass is half empty. Matthias, what do you think?
Difficult question. On the one hand, we're quite pessimistic about the current situation, but on the other hand, I'm always optimistic in my life. So as long as we are able to convince the regulator and the politicians that we have a serious problem here, and we're just in the way to do this, to convince them about this, and that the black market is really growing steadily. And if we have convinced us on this issue, I think then we will have good solutions, because they are not interested to strengthen the black market. They want a quite good, well-regulated market here in Germany with strong operators to protect the players, because the protection against player addiction, that's a major issue across the whole state treaty. And therefore, there's no protection if the players are sent to the black market. But I'm quite optimistic.
Dr. Hofmann, do you share that optimism? Do you think the regulator will listen?
There are talented people at GGL, but many of them started from scratch. And so they have to mature, they have to experience this industry, and they have to learn that they can trust this industry, which is a major challenge. I would say if you talk about significant changes of the interstate treaty, we're really talking about 5 years plus maybe, just because it takes 16 lenders and 16 signatures of prime ministers and discussions endlessly. But if we talk about, changes in terms of product restrictions in applying the interstate treaty with some leeway, I could imagine this is between 1 and 3 years, depending on the new approach and maybe some U-turns provided by the regulators. And I see this happen because they start thinking about it. If they understand, hey, something is wrong, they could do something. And I think it was also Robert Lenzhofer who suggested the regulator should contact the lawmaker and say, hey, here is a demand to change things. Please consider. And finally, I was on a panel weeks ago with 5 regulators. two regulators said the basic problem of lawmaking in our jurisdiction, not Germany, other ones, but in Europe, is they do not consult with us, the regulator, and they do not consult with the industry before making the law. And then we have to apply the law. The the ban on non-target advertising in the Netherlands is one of these examples where it should have made sense to talk to the industry and the regulator before, and things would have been different. Step by step, that can happen in Germany too.
Very good, thank you. And Dirk, what do you think? Do you agree with those sentiments?
Yes, I think I have to agree with both Joerg and Matthias, which means the result will be so and so. I think Joerg is right that we will not have a change in the gambling treaty within the next 5 years, which means we do not have these major changes, which we, of course, all know that we need it, for example, in regards to the blackjack, roulette, and the real casino games, but we will not have a license regime nationwide within the next 5 years, my best guess. But nevertheless, if the GGL really will have a different strategy in sight to say we need to support the legal market and really need to fight the illegal side, then there will be big possibilities that the legal market can be strengthened and will be more competitive, and this would really help. And I'm quite optimistic that we will have these within 1 year time. So we can meet again in 1 year time, and it will change.
Yeah. We'll see who was right and who was wrong. And with that, Roger, we've had some pessimism, some optimism. Where do you stand for our closing prediction of the panel? I think you might be on mute. I can't hear you.
Sorry, that is my fault. So I'm just going to keep it very quick, and I'm just going to predict that the major turning factor of the regulation will be the Bundesfinanzministerium, or the German finance ministry, because, as you know, if there's money missing, the Bundesfinanzministerium is going to be there. So I think they're going to realize very quickly there's a lot of money missing, and I'm going to predict that it's going to latest happen by June next year.
Yeah, there you have it.
Only the bad news, Roger. A few hundred millions are not a lot of money for them.
Well, I mean, we live times, where €1 could be the deciding factor, if you get rated A+ or AA by Moody's, So let's,
Excellent. Well, what a fabulous discussion we have had today. Nico, do you have any closing comments for our panelists before we wish them a good afternoon?
So first of all, thank you for your expertise and for enlightening us with the German market, and a couple of final thoughts from mine as well. First of all, you can only solve a problem if you realize there is a problem. But if you, as a regulatory framework, think there is no evidence of licensed operators seeing declining revenues, and out of a sudden, each and every one of you, and you are the leading experts, states like, okay, we have data, we see a decline in taxes being paid, we see a decline in player being identified and verified, we see a decline in the offerings for players. And this is just picking up what Dirk and Joerg already stated. If you want to play roulette or blackjack online, your only option is going to the black market. It's pretty simple. If you want to proceed your regular playing behavior, you are literally forced to go to the black market. And this is something which each and everybody, being in charge of changing things, should always consider. Besides this, we are speaking about the iGaming market. So the black market offerings is just one click away. It's not you need to, take a train, take a flight, whatever. It's one click. And as soon as people will realize this one, maybe there will some change. As of now, it needs to take a change of mind. As said, you can only solve a problem as soon as you are aware of there is a problem. And I'm pretty sure, and shout out to Matthias and Dirk, Joerg, as well. You are the right guys to actually but change this mindset, and fingers crossed.
There you have it. Thank you, Nico. That's 1 hour exactly. So all that remains to be said, of course, thank you to Playson and YOLO Group for sponsoring us once again. Thanks to Shahar, Matthias, Joerg, Dirk, and Roger. And thanks to everybody in the audience and joining in the comments. I think we'll leave it there for this week. So everybody, good afternoon and thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
They ain't coming close to me. Flow is on atomic, I'm starting fires through poetry. The heart's out, staying loyal, no falling out. And if you step into the court, be ready, we ballin' out, yeah.